6:34 p.m. Oh, we got it. There we go. We're live. So we're called to order at 6:34 p.m. All board members are present except for John Anella. So I will go ahead and start. The first item on our agenda here is board announcements and some updates. And we wanted to share that Milt Lee has resigned from the board, sent his letter about a week ago. I'll make sure I get that sent to put officially in the record. We wanted I just wanted to publicly have the opportunity to thank Milt for his service to the board, helping to get us started, serving as our first secretary and note taker before the computer started video recording this for us, and also remembering to bring our signs back when we used to actually have face-to-face meetings. But aside from that, from just being a great local community advocate and supporter of education for local children in our community, Milt will be missed as a board member, but we're excited to see what role in the role he's taking with South Bend Schools and what he'll be able to accomplish for the community and of course for the students that are served through the South Bend Community School Corporation. So congratulations, Milt, on that. We're sad to see you go. But that does create an opportunity for us to bring an additional board member on. And so we will be looking to fill Milt's vacant position on our board. And so I need from a process standpoint, so that we can have that a couple dates here, we're going to look to open a position. And I think Cheryl, I don't know if Rob's on or not, but we're thinking that by next Tuesday, can we have that on our website to have like an application folks could fill out? Correct, right? If that's something that we could do. And then the thought is that our next board meeting is on March 16th. And so that we'll give folks about 3 weeks to be able to complete an application. And so we'll make that the deadline. We'll get the application out. So please look for that. That'll be something that we'll send out for folks. What we do need is maybe 2 board members to serve as like an initial screen. Are there some folks that would be interested in helping to do that we could nominate right now to do that?
I'm interested.
Excellent. Thank you, Jasmine.
Hey, I might join her as well if there's a spot.
Anybody else want to compete with them for that? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Ooh, did Ryan come back? Oh, we're missing Ryan too, right? Oh, wait, hold on. I'm terrible at counting. Okay, so I will send him a text here as we'll keep rolling. He might be stuck in the public meeting here, but if not, I will make sure. I know that link just got the updated link was sent. But we'll make sure we get Ryan to join in. But so if seeing anybody else would like to do it, I will appoint, I guess, Jeff and Jasmine to be our reviewers for initial applications. And so we'll set up a process for that to happen for you two to be able to do that. So that would be great. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, Ryan is looking for the Zoom link. If somebody could send him that again. Rob somewhere out there in the magical world. Send Ryan. There he is. All right, excellent. We made it. Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. You just missed being in charge of everything now, Ryan. So you got to do all the things now. Jeff and Jasmine are going to be our initial screen for the screening of applicants for the open board position with the zone. So thank you for you two for doing that. Any other comments on that? Any other board announcements? Anybody want to in general? Okay, good. Excellent. All right, then we will roll along to the second item on our agenda. So information and discussion. And the very first item there is Black History Month events. Cheryl and team, if you want to take it away.
Great. So I'm actually going to have Deja Moore, who is our Director of Community Engagement and Special Projects, share some of the events that are coming up. And I'm going to share, I need someone to enable me to share my screen. So, I know Issa's working on that. Great. Thank you, Issa. You're awesome. So. All right, Deja, it's all you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Camacho, and thank you, board members, for allowing me to present about the Black History Month celebration going on right now currently. So currently, we're really excited to share that we've created and asked our schools to also participate in a pretty robust Black History Month celebration. You'll see here in our table here that we have quite a few events going on. Most of them are virtual due to COVID, of course, but a lot of our schools are hosting internal staff events as well as events for our families to engage in virtually as well, such as Family Feud movie nights. You'll see a lot of showcases on there. And then actually all together for one of our Empowerment Zone events, our schools have collaboratively came together and recorded a showcase as well, which will be released on our Facebook page on February 25th. At 6:30 p.m. So if we can go to the next slide, I'd be happy to share a little bit of what the South Bend Empowerment Zone is doing as well. We've recently hosted our first Power Hour panel, which went extremely well. It was over educational equity and justice. We have another panel, Where's Your Village, which will be later on in February, as well as a couple of read-along sessions where some of our board members, thank you to board member Jasmine Bradley, who has volunteered to read to our families. So those are a couple things that we're excited about as well. And then we'll be wrapping up this month, as I mentioned earlier, with our Black History Month Empowerment Zone Showcase, which includes participants of students and a few staff members from every Empowerment Zone school. So we're really excited about that. We all know how important it is, especially during this time of year and this month to celebrate Black history. So we're really excited about it. And then if I go to the next slide, then you'll see a couple of the events that we've had so far, the flyers there, and our upcoming read along with our board member, Jasmine Bradley. So we're excited about that. And then also, thank you to everyone who has participated thus far. And if you are out there and you're still interested in participating, please go to our Facebook page to RSVP. And that's all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deja. Sam, did you want me to just keep going?
Yes, just keep rolling. Thank you.
We've got several information updates. So next, Rob Diagnew, who is our Executive Director of Finance and Operations, is going to give the board and the public an update on our enrollment for the 2020-2021 school year.
All right, y'all. As Cheryl said, or Dr. Camacho said, I'm going to give the enrollment update. So the first thing that we'd like to share with you is just sort of how our enrollment has sort of tracked over the course of this particular school year. So on the far left, we start with the initial projection. Then we sort of show the first week of school, September, the official count day, and then we just wrapped up the last count day at the start of this month. One of the things that's really exciting for us is that the enrollment has grown pretty steadily over the course of this year. So as we've got listed at that 1964 at the start of the school year, and then all the way up to 2023 at this last February count day. The other thing that I want to call out is you'll see that increase between sort of our current enrollment at 2023 and our projection for the upcoming school year. And that is a product of sort of the ongoing conversation with the corporation overall about how attendance and boundaries will change as they consider different school closures. So that would have an impact on empowerment zone schools such as Harrison and Coquillard. And then this next slide here, what we also show is how enrollment by grade has sort of tracked over time. And the thing that I really want to draw your attention to is that K, the kindergarten enrollment at the very bottom of that chart. So when we first started school, that was the area where we were a bit under. And that's been the area where we have steadily grown over the course of the school year. So we've got that key point of the majority of growth in enrollment over the course of the year has been in kindergarten. So you see that we grow roughly 24 kids from September to February, and 15 of those kids were actually in kindergarten. And the other thing that we wanted to draw your attention to is just our overall enrollment and the demographics, the ethnicity of the children in empowerment zone schools. So on the left-hand side, what we've got is our student demographics last year by race and ethnicity, and our student demographics this year. The top bar shows the empowerment zone overall, and then the bottom bar shows sort of what the corporation is sort of non-empowerment zone schools. And I'll draw your attention to sort of 2 points in this particular chart. One is we serve, as you all know, having been board members on this board, a more diverse student population in the empowerment zone school than sort of the corporation overall. And then you'll notice if you sort of compare the left-hand side to the right-hand side that we're becoming more diverse overall. So the sort of non-white students in empowerment zone schools are a slightly larger percentage this particular school year than they were last year. And then the last slide that we have is about free and reduced price lunch. And again, the format here is very similar to the slide that you just saw, where we've got the share of students that are free or reduced price lunch. As you all know, that the empowerment zone schools serve a greater percentage of students that are free and reduced price lunch than the non-empowerment zone schools. And tracking from left to right, that percentage has sort of stayed relatively steady in the empowerment zone from sort of last year to this particular year, which is a little bit of a different trend than what I think we've seen overall in South Bend Community Schools. So I'll pause, but wanted to sort of let you see a little bit more information about our enrollment over the course of the school year and our race ethnicity snapshot and our free and reduced price lunch snapshot this year as well. But what questions do you all have?
Rob, can I just ask, and maybe just my naivete, on the enrollment side, do we ever know why people came or why people left? Do people just sort of disappear and we don't know why, or do we get the feedback that says mom got a new job, we don't like the math teacher over here, whatever? What kind of information are we able to garner on either those that come and why they came, or those that leave and why they left?
Yeah, that's a really fascinating question, Jeff, and it's been one that's been top of mind for us as well. So one of the things that we put into place was for students that sort of join or leave, we do ask our front office staff to give us a little bit of a notation about sort of why, where are they coming from? So some of the things we see is there's a lot of mobility in between empowerment zone schools and the corporation schools overall. And we have started to collect that information about where those students are coming from and headed to outside of that. But as of right now, the thing that we've learned is largely it's to and from South Bend Community Schools, like the non-empowerment schools, and sort of back and forth is really what we've observed. And we're trying to unpack that a little bit further. And then the other thing that's really top of mind for us is mobility. So I talked about how the number has grown from September to February. And one of the questions that we're really interested in is sort of, okay, it grew by 24 students, but there could have been a lot more turnover in students in our schools between that point. And that's sort of an analysis question that we want to get our arms around.
Any other questions, or should I move on to the next topic?
So keep rolling.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. So now we're getting to the good stuff. And I'm actually really excited to share this academic update with the public because I want to just sort of start by reframing us and what we said we were going to do in 5 years, which is we said in year 1, we were going to set a vision and build a foundation. This year, we didn't know COVID was going to be a part of the equation. But this year, we were going to build systems of support and develop community. We're doing that. Next year is the year where we really focus on developing a robust enrichment model. And then years 4 and 5, really thinking about deeper learning and also just sort of reimagining how we do school. Last, I believe it was July, it might have been June, I think it was July, this board approved something that has been driving our work this year, which is the continuous improvement framework. And the idea behind this framework is that it would really serve as a North Star for us as we, push work forward to improve those categories you see on the left-hand side: academic, school culture, and family engagement / partnership. We like to say partnership. These are the things that we are holding ourselves accountable to in between, these annual updates we'll get in terms of test scores from the state and how we're doing in reading and math. So, this has really been driving our work this year, and I'm really excited to share an update on how some of our struggling students have shifted, and how we have also been able to get more of our children on or above grade level. And I actually want to ground us in some really important context. So this was the beginning of this school year. This was not created in a year or two. This was created over multiple years. And so something that's been really important to me is that as we talk about improvement in the empowerment zone, that we are celebrating every success, no matter how small, because it means that we're pointed in the right direction. And when I show this slide, people are always like, whoa. So really what this is saying is that you can see where our kindergartners fell. Red signifies 2 grade levels or more below grade level standard. Yellow is 1 grade level below grade level standard, and green is on or above. So there's a story here in this slide. And the story that I've shared with our empowerment zone is this is what happens when you stay in remediation for core instruction for a long time. There are also a lot of other factors, but that's one of them. And that's why it was so important to us that we purchase a rigorous, high quality curriculum that offers children grade level content every single day. And then we provide the scaffolds to support them. So this was math, and this was reading. So what we started the school year with, and you all know that this school year has been like no other. And so, starting the school year with the charge to really try to transform these outcomes, because I want to be very clear, in the empowerment zone, we don't believe that these outcomes are an indicator of our students' capabilities or abilities or intelligence. It's also not an indicator of their families being quote unquote good or bad. This is the result of school level stuff just not being in alignment to really support children. And so that's something that we started this year like on fire to really address. And here I'm going to share some of our updates with you. So we give our students 3 benchmark assessments per year, 1 at the beginning of the year, 1 in the middle of the year, and 1 at the end of the year. Last year, we used the UNWEA, which is a norm reference test. This year, we decided to use the iReady because it's aligned to our math curriculum. It's also a criterion reference test, which means that, in a norm reference test, you'd line up 100 children and you would get to see sort of how they perform in relation to each other. That's important information, but it's not the most actionable for teachers, right? Like, what do I do with this? So we decided to go with the iReady, which is criterion reference, which means that literally it's just looking at grade level standards. Children either know it or they don't. And that's where these tiers come. Again, just want to say it again. The green means the child is on or above grade level. The yellow means the child is 1 year below grade level. And the red means they are 2 or more years behind. So you can see here in the fall window, we had 10% of children on or above grade level in math. And at this most recent winter window, we had 11% of children on or above grade level in math. Now, the important thing to name is that being on or above grade level does not remain static throughout the year. So let's say a child scored 300 points, and that's what it takes for them to be on or above grade level. In order for them to be on grade level for the next benchmark period, they will have had to have earned more than the 300 points, like whatever that target is. Maybe it was 350 points. And if they don't advance in the way that they're expected to advance from fall to winter to spring, then they fall off of grade level. They're no longer represented in the grade level data. So the target for being on grade level moves throughout the year. So what we can see from this is that we were able to maintain our children who were on grade level, and we were also able to make some small movement in moving an additional 1% to grade level. I also want to bring your attention to the red portion of the triangle. So in the fall, we had 49% of our children across the empowerment zone 2 or more grade levels behind in math. At this most recent benchmark period, we had 46% 2 or more grade levels. So again, you don't see that kind of movement unless things are pointed in the right direction. And, you know, in a non-pandemic year, would I expect to see more? Absolutely. However, given all of the conversation around learning loss and kids this being a lost year, I'm really proud of the fact that we've seen not only a maintaining of the children who are on or above and a reduction of the children who are 2 or more grade levels below, but also an increase of the children who are on or above. And then just for you all who are watching, who are like, what are those funny letters in the corner? This is just literally an analysis of when we take math and break it up into discrete pieces. So for example, this is like algebraic, you know, thinking, numbers and operations, geometry. This is where our children scored in each of those categories. So again, this iReady assessment gives us some direction. It gives teachers some actionable direction and principles when we get this data back. I wanted to take a moment to just break the data down even further. So you can see here, this is actually 5 levels. So you can see that even within that 2 or more grade levels below, we've got a significant portion of our children who are 3 or more grade levels below. And I just want to share this with you transparently and with the public, because I have to emphasize like how on fire our team is to continue to advance the ball. So, you know, when we saw this data, we were like, is it good? Is it bad? What have other districts done? And we spoke with folks on an iReady call, and they were like, any growth is great growth right now. And so we are really, really proud of this. And this is complex. As I said at the top of this, it's not just a result of 1 or 2 things that have resulted in our data sort of being in this place, but what's exciting is to see the movement. The other thing that I want to talk about is with iReady, we're actually able to look at growth and placement. So placement are all of these different categories, right? We've got mid or above grade level, early or on grade level, 1 grade level below, 2 grade levels below, 3 or more grade levels below. So what this chart is showing, it's showing the percentage of children in each of these schools at each of these grade levels that had improved placement from fall to winter. So you can see here, I'm going to shout out Wilson's kindergarten team. 31% of our Wilson kindergartners saw improved placement in math. Now, you can be doing a lot of great learning and not actually shift categories, right? Like you could be really, really close. Maybe you didn't actually move over into the next category, but these are actually the percentage of children at those grade levels in these schools who made improved placement in math. And then I'm going to talk about reading. So reading, you can see in the fall, we started with 13% of our children on or above grade level. And this most recent window or winter window, we had 17% who were on or above grade level. That is to be commended. I am incredibly proud of our teachers and our principals that teaching through a computer in the midst of a pandemic with lots of uncertainty is something that I think if we talk to any of our teachers, it's not easy to do. For our principals leading in this time, I mean, really, we've been doing crisis management, you know, for almost a year, really crisis leadership. To lead through that is really hard. So seeing this kind of movement makes me really, really, really proud. And I want to name something else about this data. We are looking at apples to apples. So we're looking at the children who took the fall window, the fall benchmark, and the winter benchmark to look at this comparison and growth. And then I share the data in some other ways so you can see the snapshots of all. And then the other thing is we started the school year with 49% of our children 2 or more grade levels below. And in the winter, we had reduced that down 4% to 45%. So still really a huge mountain for us to climb, a lot of work that we still have to do. We are certainly not going to rest and say, oh, this is good enough. However, I'm extremely proud of our team for being able to produce these outcomes in this context. It tells me that our strategy is right. It tells me that we've got the right people in our boat, rowing to the destination of improved outcomes for children. And so I'm really, really proud. And then when we break down again, you can see that it's not just 2 or more grade levels below. We've got a significant portion of children who we are responsible for their learning, who are 3 or more grade levels below. And that is really, really complex. And there's a lot that we have to really think about to ensure that all of their needs are met, and we're already thinking about it. And then here, excuse me, I didn't shift this. This should say reading. So you can see here, again, the same thing I explained earlier, which is the percentage of students with improved placement by grade level, by school. We can like drill all the way down to the student level to see how children have advanced and progressed. There's reading. All right, here we go. There it is. So you can see here, look at the 5th grade, for example, at Coquillard, 42% of our students in the 5th grade at Coquillard had improved placement. So, you know, that's really, really impressive. And then you can also see how we're tracking the data. So we also track the number of students tested. Testing in the midst of a pandemic is challenging, and we had to set some concrete goals around being able to increase the number of children who took it. We still struggled, as you can see, in some schools. I do want to shout out the fact that our principals were so committed to making sure that all of our children take that middle of the year assessment that I'm going to share some updated numbers with you in a moment. But the reason why this is so important is because this benchmark assessment kind of resets the child's individualized pathway. So in the empowerment zone, every single child has an individualized pathway for learning in math and in reading, which I think is one of the things that's contributed to some of this growth that we've seen. And in order for that pathway to be the most responsive to what the child needs in the moment, they have to take the benchmark assessment so it can sort of reset their learning pathway. So even if we didn't have students captured in some of these final numbers here, in terms of the number that we were able to test, we have gone back and we've made sure that our goal is 100% of kids are tested. I do want to shout out Wilson, who was able to assess 99% of their children, so all but 2, by the end of the winter benchmark. Very impressive. But you can see across the board with our schools, like we've seen lots of growth. Some small shifts here at Warren. We're digging into that and exploring why. But overwhelmingly, really exciting growth. And you can see here, our principals are on fire to make sure that every single child has the right pathway. And so you can see that even though we had challenges, so for example, by the end of the benchmark, Navarre was only able to assess 66% of their children by the end of the benchmark period. You can see here now that that's grown to 86% in math and 82% in reading. And you can see across the entire empowerment zone, like we've got really strong numbers. I've also been talking to a lot of colleagues who work in places around the country, and this piece of getting children to actually be assessed has been really, really hard. So this is another indicator that what we're doing is working. So I'm going to pause there. I imagine there are questions about that before I go into continuous improvement cycles. What questions do you all have that I can answer?
When's the next round? When will we get the next round of data?
Yep, so the next benchmark is supposed to take place in the middle of May, and it's supposed to last for 2 weeks. So we would have it in time for our June board meeting. And I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens between now and then.
Well, maybe my first comment was a question, but I probably should have started off by just saying, I mean, those numbers are phenomenal. And so it's great to see that things are happening. And, you know, obviously kudos to you and the entire team and everybody at the schools that's making that happen. So it is tremendous. And I'll also mark my calendar for that next data update.
Great, thank you. Yes, Jeff.
Cheryl, just a quick question. So again, as Sam mentioned, thrilled for the progress, and thank you for your leadership. And we need to celebrate these victories with the idea that, again, we still have major work to go. More a question, you mentioned sort of students each have kind of an individual plan. My question is maybe more on maybe the staff or faculty side. So for example, if you mentioned like Wilson Kindergarten, for example, is knocking it out of the park. So are you able then to sort of go and is there something happening in the Wilson classroom that's unique that you then can go and replicate in some of the others? How much is there on maybe the staff development side to sort of replicate success and try to repeat it in those other spots?
Such a phenomenal question, Jeff. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to wait because I'm going to talk about continuous improvement cycles in our teacher leadership teams. And I think both of those strategies get at what you're talking about. But the idea is like one of the big core concepts of improvement that's been put out by the Carnegie Foundation and lots of other people that do research and education is just the importance of what they call networked communities. So there are schools where every single teacher's classroom is an island and they're doing their own thing and they close the door and they open it and they leave, right? And then there are schools where teachers collaborate with each other, plan with each other, share strategies and ideas. Same is true of school leaders. There's a world where all of our school leaders could just be in total isolation, but we're really pushing, part of our strategy is to push and develop these networked communities, and that can enable us to share bright spots and learn from them as a community so that, the power of that Wilson kindergarten team, and they are phenomenal, can be shared across our empowerment zone and impact practice in other teachers' classrooms. Any other questions on the academic data? All right, well, I'm going to hop back in and talk about continuous improvement cycles, which, as I shared with Jeff, they're like one of our big pieces of strategy this year to really push us towards a couple of things. And here are the 6 principles of improvement that I shared earlier. These were published by the Carnegie Foundation, and I think all of these things are things that we're trying to sort of tackle through our continuous improvement cycle work. So I'm just going to, and you can see there, number 6 is accelerate improvements through networked communities. Disciplined inquiry is another one. So in turnaround, and I've been doing it for many years, there are best practices, but nobody has a magical recipe for every single community or context. So whatever community you're doing turnaround in, like you've got to be able to engage in some inquiry because nobody has all the answers. And that's one of the things that I've said over and over again to our team is like, I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers, but together we can figure out the answers that are needed for this community. We cannot improve what we cannot measure. So these continuous improvement cycles really have been focusing on like, what does success look like and how do we measure it? And it's forced some really great conversations amongst the team about that. Variation in performance is a core problem to be addressed. I had a professor at Harvard who was obsessed with variability. And I was like, well, of course there's variability because we've got people, right, in schools. However, he was right in that when you have uneven performance across classrooms, that's going to create an uneven experience for families and for students, and that is a challenge. So that's something that we definitely need to pay attention to. And then really making the work problem specific and user-centered. So, one of the first policies this board passed was the family and student-centered decision-making policy. That is a user-centered policy, right? That forces us in the empowerment zone as we're carrying out the work to really think through what are the impacts of what we're thinking or doing to our students and our families. There's also we have a theory of action in the empowerment zone, which is that, if we can leverage the leadership of our principals, our teachers, our parents, really support them, develop capacity and develop and nurture their leadership. So they're all in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, that we will then be able to make the beautiful sort of vision and mission that we set for the empowerment zone become true. And we will be able to increase outcomes for our children, academic outcomes, but so many other outcomes. So this is really the theory behind continuous improvement cycles. It's like, how do we actually bring these communities together to be in the same boat, rowing together? And so there are 2 big focus areas for continuous improvement cycles. One is to strengthen data-based goal setting and execution. So if we don't look at data to set goals, then what's the point in setting the goal, right? The goal could be right, it could be wrong, it could be focused on something that doesn't matter. So that's been really important, a really important learning for us also being able to really look at data in multiple ways. So we have a variety of structures and systems set up to really support this goal. And then the other focus area is on strengthening a collaborative and results-oriented culture. So going back to that networked community idea, how do we bring people together so they can like wrestle with some of these big challenges that don't have an easy answer, that don't have a magical solution, that can't just be fixed with a project plan? Like how do we bring folks together to do that? Well, we have this continuous improvement tracker that we use for each of our cycles, which I'm about to describe. We also have what I'm calling, we're developing communities of practice, where our principals are supporting each other, nurturing each other, wrestle through some of the biggest adaptive challenges that we have in front of us. And the same is true for our teacher leaders, and that team will be launching officially next week with our first set of teacher leadership meetings. So what are continuous improvement cycles? Basically, here's what they are in a nutshell. We set goals around specific areas. We give ourselves 6 weeks to accomplish those goals. We identify what leadership actions need to happen to make the goal come true. And we track our data along the way. And then we analyze what went well, what didn't go well, what could we learn from this? What are we going to do to integrate into the next continuous improvement cycle? So as you can see from the slide, we just wrapped up our first continuous improvement cycle on February 5th. And we just last week had our analysis of progress meetings, which were phenomenal. There was a lot of vulnerability, a lot of problem solving, a lot of just like dealing and sharing of ideas and strategies. And then this week, we are engaging in presentations of progress where principals and members of the executive leadership team will share explicitly with the community, so no private goal setting. These are my goals. I'm publicly announcing them to you. These are my goals for the second continuous improvement cycle. Here are the leadership actions I'm going to engage in that I think are going to get myself and my school to where we need to be. And then we're going to like sort of launch and start tracking just like we did for the first one. And you can see here that because we started our continuous improvement cycles for the very first time, and it was kind of countercultural for us to be sharing our goals and tracking our stuff and having conversations about it, we started really light. So we started with really like these areas because I wanted our principals to feel comfortable with this process. And that requires like a thought to like how we sort of introduce it. I think if we would have just sort of jumped to all of this without them having the ability to go through a cycle and experience it in full and learn from it, then we would have been setting ourselves up not for success. But this was a great way for us to start. And now you can see we've gone from this number of goals to 11 goals that they'll be setting for the second continuous improvement cycle. And I want to be clear, we don't capture every single thing that we need to be doing here. These are just the things that we've agreed to measure and to track together as a community because these things really matter. And we have analysis of progress meetings. So what that is basically, last week, we had data folders for each school. The team looked at the data folders. The principals provided us with a presentation of what their goals had been, what leadership actions they engaged in, if the leadership actions were successful or not, what they learned about themselves or their school. And those conversations were rich. We're going to have Samantha Smith, our principal from Wilson, come on in just a moment to actually give just voice to how she experienced it. And then you can see here, this is Samantha. This is actually, I took this from her sheet. This is one of her slides. So literally, this is the template we ask our principals to think through and our executive leadership team, because none of us have arrived, right? Like we have to be committed to continuous learning, to continue to just really do what we need to do for children. So what are the leadership actions that you took? Was the action effective? Why or why not? What did you learn about yourself and or your school? And you can see Samantha listed out some things here. Every principal did that. Every executive leader is doing that. And then we have the presentations of progress. And I think the public nature of this matters. So again, they're going to be presenting their goals and the actions. It's like a public commitment to the actions they're going to be taking as they launch these goals. And it enables us to develop shared understanding. As I share with our principals, the failure of any school in the empowerment zone is all of our failure. It's not, doesn't just belong to that principal, it belongs to all of us. Like we're all on the hook to make sure that every single school, every single child has what they need and demonstrate success. And so that's really, really helped move us and advance us culturally. I feel like our team has developed trust. I feel like we're really leaning into productive conflict in ways that we wouldn't without some of these structures in place. And you can see here at the presentations of progress, it will basically, these are just some slides out of the deck that they need to put together. So again, just like where are you falling? Where did you fall for all of your goals? I'm also asking them to go in. The Indiana Department of Education has a school quality rubric for schools that looks at leadership and instruction and supportive environment, collaborative teachers, and engaged and empowered families. So I've asked each principal as part of the process for setting goals, think about the conditions in each of their schools along the domains in that rubric. They are to go in, sort of do like a self-reflection for their school. And from that reflection, they're going to choose like one row, one indicator in that rubric to really zoom in on that also folds into the continuous improvement framework. So you can see here are the actual goals for academics and instruction. They need to like share the baseline, the goal they're setting, the leadership actions they're going to take. Here's that row from the rubric from the Indiana Department of Education on school conditions with the ambitious instruction focus area, like what school condition are they going to tackle during the second continuous improvement cycle? What actions will they take? You can see for school culture, again, it goes along with our continuous improvement framework, all of the goals they need to set. And again, that rubric row around supportive environment. Family partnerships, same thing, rubric row around engaged and empowered families. And that is it. So I'm going to stop my share because I did invite Samantha Smith, who is our phenomenal principal at Wilson. And I don't see her here. Wondering if she has, there she is, yay. So before Samantha speaks, I just want to brag a little bit on Samantha and on her school. So Samantha, like I said, her and her team were able to get every single child to complete the winter benchmark, except for one. They've got one more to go. It's like 99.7% complete. So I have full faith they're going to reach 100% here in the next week or so. But I just want to say that Samantha's leadership at Wilson has been phenomenal. The culture that's there, the work that she's been doing. So I wanted to invite her to speak a little bit about what this process has been like for her as a principal. Thank you for joining us, Samantha.
Thank you, Dr. Camacho, for giving me the opportunity to share with everyone what this process has been like. This process has allowed me to grow and stretch as a leader. Leaders tend to get comfortable with just retrieving the data and analyzing the data. And those tasks are highly important, but what the continuous improvement cycle has done for me is what we call removing ourselves from the dance floor and getting onto the balcony to get a better understanding and bigger picture. So if I go to the balcony, I'm able to see a wider picture. If I stay on the dance floor the whole time, I'm only able to see directly of what's in front of me. So after analyzing and getting a wider picture, I was able to set up measurable and attainable goals, goals that are strictly aligned with the Empowerment Zone's vision and mission, and goals that I know that are needed for Wilson's families, students, staff, and other stakeholders. I love the process of sharing our goals with the leadership team because we get great feedback from one another, which helps us grow stronger as leaders. Now, I'll be honest, for this continuous improvement cycle, I've set some pretty high goals because I'm holding the bar high for Wilson. So yes, we received amazing data, but it's important for us not to take our foot from off of the gas pedal and to continue to climb higher up that mountain. But I have faith that our amazing Wilson staff and I will reach and achieve those goals.
Thank you so much, Samantha. So board members, do you have any questions for Samantha or for myself around continuous improvement cycles? Hi, Jeff.
All right. So one, Samantha, thank you for your leadership and congratulations there. Maybe just more of a view from the boots on the ground. I think historically we've heard, the demands on teachers are immense, right? They're sort of pulled in all different directions. They got to do a lesson plan. They got to do a lot more, things. At the same time, we said teaching in the empowerment zone would be different than teaching in other places. So can maybe Cheryl or Samantha just give a feel for the boots on the ground, the everyday teacher, how they have sort of integrated, what has it been like? How have they received sort of, some of this new direction that we're going here?
Yeah, so I'll speak to continuous improvement cycles, and then Samantha, I'd love for you to share your perspective of how your teachers are taking on the work. With intentionality, continuous improvement cycles really haven't touched teachers yet. I believe that it's really important that leaders go first for the thing they're asking other folks to do. So this year, it's all about really laying the foundation for our leaders to be engaging in these cycles. I think as we look to next year, there will be natural places where it makes sense for the cycle to touch teachers explicitly. And then there will be places where it still probably just needs to lie with the school leader, largely because there are a lot of strategies that come out of it. So Samantha, if you want to share your perspective on school culture at Wilson and how people are taking on the work.
Yeah, I'll just say that our staff at Wilson are very hardworking, being aligned to the vision and mission. We've built a foundation of trust. So we have great trust in our zone chief, and they have trust in me. We all trust one another, and we know that trust is foundational for anything. So with that, we're hard at work, and we trust the work, we trust the process that's ahead of us. And yes, teachers, begin to get overwhelmed. They need additional support, but we're able to give that to them, which allows them to get the task done. Does that answer your question, Jeff?
Thank you.
Any other questions about continuous improvement cycles for Samantha or myself? All right. Thank you, Samantha. I really appreciate you coming on and speaking to the board. You're doing great work at Wilson, as is your team. So thank you very, very much. And I am going to jump back in, and I'm going to talk about teacher leadership teams, which is another part of a really important part of our strategy. So again, I'm just bringing back the 6 core principles of improvement. Just like the continuous improvement cycles, teacher leadership teams actually tackle some of these principles as well. And again, our theory, I always want to be explicit, like this is what we really believe. We believe that if you get folks sort of aligned, right, with great leadership development and capacity building, like they will do everything that's needed to really get us to where we're trying to get, which is where children are reading and doing math and have access to whatever their hearts desire when they leave school. So we have two types of teacher leadership teams in the empowerment zone this year. We have a school improvement teacher leadership team, which you can see right here. And their scope really is about helping the principal engage in some disciplined inquiry cycles around school level data. So like what that means, like taking away the gobbledygook education speak, is that they're going to help the principal write a thoughtful school improvement plan by engaging in a process where they engage families and students and data, and they reflect. And it's a real robust process that's been built out for those teams. Those teams have been elected by their peers. And so again, like they'll be working with the principal to really develop the school improvement strategy for next year. And then we have our instructional teacher leadership team. And the scope for that team, these are folks who went through an application process. We had a rubric, people applied, we invited people into those positions. These folks are helping create a thoughtful professional learning scope and sequence for next year. They're going to help their peers develop their own instructional strategies. These folks are going to, I always believe that whatever you're trying to lead other people through, like you should go through it yourself first. So they're also going to be going through a really robust set of professional learning. that our friends from the instruction partners will be providing. And then you can see here that both teacher leadership teams support some of our overarching goals, which, I mean, overarching goals are strengthening the quality of teaching and learning, decreasing disproportionality and discipline outcomes, strengthening partnership with families, and then strengthening school culture in alignment to our vision of what strong school culture needs to be right now, which is adaptability, being a contributor to a healthy and functional team, and committing everyone, myself included, every single person committing to their own learning and growth. Like nobody arrives, nobody's done. We're in constant pursuit of learning and growth. So some of the key things that the teacher leadership teams will be supporting, again, this nurturing healthy team, principals, executive leaders in the empowerment zone, and those who serve on what we call our strategy team, which is comprised of folks from different layers of the organization. We have done a book study on the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And this is something that people are sick of looking at this triangle, but you know, like we've got to build that foundation of trust to be able to do any of the rest of this. And right now, like the team is really focused on this. And so we want to make sure that our teacher leaders are set up with the same paradigm. Again, thinking of everyone in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, so we can really concentrate our energy on the most important thing, which is shifting some of the data that you saw from our fall benchmark and those red bars, turning them into yellow bars and then green bars. We also very much believe in the Pygmalion effect. So people's efficacy and turnaround really matters. You cannot turn around a school by beating the people over the head and telling them how bad they are, right? Just like you can't turn around a student's like past maybe poor performance by doing that with them. You've got to speak life into people. You've got to speak belief into people. You've got to believe that people can actually do it, and then they do. And that's something that I think is understated. It sounds so soft and loose, but I'm going to tell you, having been in multiple turnaround settings, like that is such an important part of the recipe. Also ensuring universal high expectations. So we did purchase a rigorous high quality curriculum. There is a core text that we talk about a lot in the empowerment zone that talks about access and equity, but like breaks it down in a way that I think we don't break down enough, which is out of all the hours that children are sitting in desks, in classrooms, in a non-pandemic year, or sitting in front of their computer at their kitchen table in a pandemic year, how many of the assignments that we give them are actually worthy of their time? How many of the assignments that we give them are actually like grade level content? And oftentimes we get in this philosophical thing, like, well, they can't, like, they don't know, they need this first. Well, I'm going to tell you, as a former first grade teacher, I had children who did not know their letters, but I would never, ever say, you can't read a book, right? Like, you read a book by looking at the pictures. You listen to me read a book. Like, we can't withhold grade level content from children because they can't access it independently. And that's something that we're pushing really hard. And it's going to be hard work because our teachers are like, well, I'm trying to use this curriculum, but this child is so far behind, it feels like it's a mismatch. So that's the work that we need to do, is helping our teachers scaffold our children up to the grade level content instead of watering it down. The slide I showed earlier with the grade levels and the red bars that grew every year, that's what happens when this doesn't happen. So this is a big focus for us. Strengthening culturally responsive practice. So we serve a large percent of children who are Black, African American, Latinx, and we need to ensure that our practices, our content, all of that is responsive to them. And you know, there's a lot of things I have listed here. I have this, note to an educator, hope required when growing roses in concrete, but I want to be explicit about the concrete. The concrete is not our children. The concrete is not their families. The concrete are the systems that come together or have traditionally come together in our schools that don't give children what they need to be successful. So that's the concrete, the conditions. The concrete is not who the children were born to, where they live, how much their families make. That's not the concrete. So it's really important for us to zoom in on this culturally responsive practice piece. And then I'm just going to very quickly, again, this is the rubric categories for the instructional teacher leadership team. We had applicants, we selected from those applicants, and I just want to very quickly just name folks. So our math instructional teacher leadership team, you can see we've got Maria Toscas from Coquillard, Kirsten James from Harrison, Lanny Jones from Warren, and Heather Rooney from Wilson. Our literacy instructional teacher leadership team, we've got Christina Morris from Coquillard, Melissa Shaiko from Harrison, Amelia Garcia from Navarre, and Courtney Mitchell from Harrison. Our technology integration teacher leadership team, we've got Shannon Seigan from Warren, Tara Temple from Warren, Danielle Garcia from Harrison, and Yannick McDowell from Harrison. And then we have our lone but courageous social work teacher leader, Jessica Lawson Gonzalez, who works at Harrison's phenomenal newer addition to our team. And then we've got our school improvement teacher leadership teams. So for Coquillard, we've got Kayla Beek, Maria Toscas, Kendra Clayton, Jenna Hill, Ethan Morose, and Christina Morris. For Harrison, we've got Crystal Malone, Danielle Ratty, Courtney Mitchell, Terry Parker, and Steve Wilson. For Navarre, we have Stephen Smith, Valeria Chamorro, Jasmine Brown, Jennifer Roden, and Jonathan Duranlo. For Warren, we have Amanda McCormick, Donna Beasley, Alexandria Cooper, and Lanny Jones. And for Wilson, we have Megan Connors, Beth Grenert, Natalie McCullough, Lorena Jacobs, and Laura Hasty. And then last but not least, this is just an example of the scope of work that our instructional teacher leadership team will be taking on. So as you can see, the foundational sessions are all about race and equity and bias. Like, we need every single person in the empowerment zone to be thinking about that, because the lens we bring to the data impacts the meaning that we make of the data. So that's something that we're really zooming in on, is like making sure that everyone has a great foundation for thinking about that, so that as we're making meaning together, as we look at our data, we're arriving in a good place and not in a place that is laden with bias. And then you can see the work of our school improvement teacher leadership teams. I just took some snapshots because this was multiple pages long, but there's a lot of intentionality to what we've planned for those teams to go through. And I'm so excited for the impact they're going to have, the suggestions they're going to offer, the ideas they're going to bring, the energy and perspective. We're excited for all of that. Last, I just want to name, because we actually haven't done a press release for this, but I just want to say we did secure a $250,000 Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant for this year. That grant is funding some of this work, along with the grant that our amazing partners in the South Bend Community School Corporation were able to secure, the teacher and school leader grant, of which we get a portion. It's a federal grant that was celebrated in the fall. So those two grants are enabling us to do some of this work, to bring in some really good professional learning, and to engage in some real celebration of our teacher leaders. All right, so I'm going to stop, and I'm going to ask if there are any questions about teacher leadership teams.
No question, but just, I mean, another praise comment, but in general, when we did the celebration for the teacher leadership teams and announcing, so I had an opportunity to sit in on that as a board member. And it was just, the energy is something that I think is really important. And just seeing that energy staying up, as I know people are getting worn down by pandemic. We're doing a heavy lift, so we need a lot of energy, and it's just refreshing to see that and to continue seeing that. So once again, kudos to you and everybody on the leadership team, and then all the other leadership teams making this happen, because it is exciting to see. And I'm looking forward to see what the next steps are. But other questions, comments?
Yeah, I'll add a comment. As Sam, as the kids say these days, same. I had the privilege to listen in on that day as well, and yeah, you couldn't have said it better. I mean, the excitement is great to see for our community, and I would say too, the thing that I appreciated is the focus on professional development. A lot of times, we put people into positions and think they have all the tools in their tool belt and the skill sets to be successful, but we all can benefit from development and training. So I'm really pleased to see the focus on all the effort of professional development and skill building for our teachers. So a lot of great stuff. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's all the team, the principals, the executive leadership team, the teachers who've stepped up and said, hey, I'm willing to do this. Our parent advisory council, everybody has had a role in that. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Sam. Okay, well, I'm going to go into the last informational update, which is we are expanding in person. It's time. It's exciting. We are so excited to be doing this, and we want to make sure that as we're doing it, we have a thoughtful process, because process really matters. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to share the why behind now. We've shared it with our staff. We've shared it with our families. I'm going to share it publicly here. And then I just want to give the board an update on process and what we're looking at. So here's the rationale for expanding in-person seats at this time. First, we knew when we actually went all remote, I believe towards the second week of December, we always said, like, this is temporary. And when conditions improve, we're going to offer more in-person seats. So like right now, we've been tracking our data. We've been looking at it from everything from just, attendance and participation to the student survey, of which I read every single comment that the students say. And I look at the discrepancy. I look at how our e-learners from home are experiencing school versus our sheltered e-learners. Like, it's an explicit question we ask so we can disaggregate in that student survey. And we see a difference in how they're experiencing it. So I'm actually an Empowerment Zone parent, as I've mentioned several times. I have a 5th grader and a 3rd grader at Willard. They have been e-learning from home all year. And it's getting old. It's getting old, right? Like, for parents, like, there's been an uptick in parents saying, hey, I've tried to hang in here with you. This is getting old. I can't help my child with this. They've developed some bad habits. They're on YouTube. They're searching this and that. I can't micromanage that because I'm working. So I'm giving a lot of micro examples, but I have been paying attention to what our families have also been saying on the survey. So our students, our families, we also have staff that have been like, I really, really want to bring more children back in person. I feel like I can have more impact that way. So the other thing that makes this possible, because that wouldn't be enough by itself, is that, COVID-19 trends are headed in the right direction. So we track that data weekly. We have a COVID-19 project manager who tracks not only our local data, what's happening in our schools, our state data, our national data, and we've been tracking it closely. So we're at the place where we feel like it's time. And then last but not least, surrounding school corporations have opened to full capacity for elementary schools, and the corporation will be opening to full capacity on the 22nd of February. So we're looking at, in terms of process, launching an expanded in-person option. It would be Monday through Thursday, as our in-person option has been all year. And it would be March 8th would be the day where we would bring back more children. But here's the piece on process that really matters. We actually don't know our families' preferences fully. So since last week, principals and their teams have been busy contacting every single Empowerment Zone family. So again, we can find out preferences. Families' preferences change as they're personally impacted, as health data changes, as the news reports different things. So we can't actually build a model without knowing what number and percentage of our families want to come back in person and which prefer to continue to e-learn from home. It is important to us that we continue to maintain an option for those families who are choosing to e-learn from home. But we can't make decisions about an instructional model or a staffing model. So without knowing exactly what the numbers are. So in any event, that process will be done by the 19th of February. We have 2 schools that have already completed and already fully know what their families' preferences are. We're going to continue to disaggregate our academic and our achievement data to better understand current needs. So my team is actively disaggregating as we look at our in-person and our sheltered e-learner, our in-person and our e-learning from home students, what are the differences that we've noted? Because we also have a responsibility to ensure that every single child is offered what they need over the summer. And we can't tell that story without looking at sort of what's happened with those two different groups. We also are planning on sharing back that data. We're hosting an empowerment zone wide meeting, just as we have for every big thing. We've always hosted a meeting where staff can come, they can ask their questions, they can hear directly from me what's going on, and we put them to work to help us think of some solutions. So there are some key decision points that are just hard to make. I like to get lots of perspective and voice on those decision points, and our staff has not let me down. They've showed up to those meetings. They've given us good suggestions, good ideas. The thing I've always emphasized is we're not going to agree on every single thing. That's going to be impossible in any group. I think we can see that even just from how our families have decided what they're going to do or not do. But after we have vigorous discussion and productive conflict and we share different ideas, whatever is decided, we just need to disagree and commit. So that's part of being in a healthy team, is like things don't always go the way that every single person wants it to go. But once the group has made a decision, everybody's got to be on board with that decision. So we're going to be having that meeting next Monday. It's scheduled. We're going to then, once we have all that data and that information, we're going to make a decision about the instructional and staffing model. And what I mean specifically is, with sheltered e-learning, our teachers taught through the computer for everybody, right? So we invited children back into the building, but kids were spaced out. They had their device, the teacher had their device. We did that to mitigate spread. We did that for safety reasons. However, given some of the recent developments and the data that's out there, that may or may not be necessary as we move forward. So if we have 95% of our families wanting to send their children back in person, that model is not going to make sense. We're going to need to think of a different way. And there are multiple decisions we can make around having virtual teachers or not virtual teachers if we go that route. But again, for every decision that we make, there's like 3 more decisions that need to be made. So we need to have data to make these decisions and not just make them arbitrarily, because we really don't know until we know what our families are choosing. And then we're going to be communicating with our families and staff the decided process. And it'll be like, we believe in layered communication. So the staff newsletter, email, text messages, social media, we'll do all those things. And plus teachers will circle back with families who said they want to come back in person to provide that update on process. And then we will launch the expanded in-person option on March 8th. And again, that'll be a Monday through Thursday in-person option. We'll continue to hold Fridays as asynchronous learning days, where teachers and staff engage in professional learning and students have actual assignments. It should not just be like a makeup day. And we've talked about that. So that is the process we're going to be taking for this. It feels like once we get settled with something, there's another change to sort of roll out. And this has been like the year of changes. So I'm hopeful that once we make this change, that we can hopefully not make any other changes like this during the school year. But I'm going to pause there, stop my share, and then ask what questions you have or thoughts that you want to share.
Yeah, not just a comment. I think it's important to get folks back in the classroom, and I think you put a very thoughtful approach here to do that. And as you mentioned, things seem to be trending the right way. We know the pandemic's not over, but I have a lot of confidence that the staff and you have the right protocols in place to keep everybody safe, and anxious to see everybody get back to some normalcy here before the end of the year.
Thanks, Jeff. The one condition that I wish were in place, I just wish that everybody had access to the vaccine right now, just for their own peace of mind. I know that they don't yet. I know that they will. And so one thing we're thinking about is just like, what can we do to help alleviate people's anxiety that they may have about that, whether it's providing them with a different kind of mask, whether it's just really, we already have protocols in place where we have our COVID-19 project manager walking to school and like writing a report about how many people had the mask below their nose and all of that. I think as we expand to our in-person, it's going to be so important that everybody in our schools is adhering to our mask protocol, which is pretty pretty rigorous. But yeah, that's the one thing that I wish was in place, but it's not, and we don't know when it will be, so we can't, just sort of wait for that. We've got to move forward, but we can do so safely. Other questions, comments, thoughts?
I just chime in agreeing again with what Jeff said, and also just I like the couple week process here to roll. It's easy to close things, right? It's harder to open things up. And so I think trying to make sure that we're not rushing to just be like, everybody show up Monday. And so that we have the opportunity to kind of roll this out in a way that not just comfortable for students, right, or families, but for our teachers and folks in the building, right down to the front desk staff, to the principals. So I think that this is great, and hopefully also helps alleviate people's fears by the knowledge that the steps are being taken right in the right way. So kudos again to just thinking about what that looks like. And if there's anything, that we can do from like a board perspective, whether that's thinking about, like messaging on that, or, what we could do to help with that, please, let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, that's all that I have for tonight.
Hey, so then, well, good. That's all that you had, right? You only went for like an
All that I
hour,
had.
talking straight. So, yeah, so I'll open up for other either board comments or questions during our open call for public comment for the board. We didn't receive any to read into the record, so I don't have any there. And so open now to any board chair or announcement items. Seeing none, I will. Well, before I ask for adjournment, just hope everybody stays warm and safe out there. Drive safe. It looks like roads got cleared out and things a little bit better this evening. Kudos, I think, also to just all the folks that clear snow, whether it's at school buildings or the streets or public. I think this year our snow truck drivers, from having to work on Christmas Eve to having to deal with a New Year's ice storm, I think they've had enough of their pandemic work as well. So thank you to all of them. But in general, stay warm, safe, everybody. Thank you, Cheryl, for your leadership and vision with the team. Thank you to everybody that's working hard to support children and families in our zone schools and all local schools. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
So Ryan, I'll have a second from Karima. I think her wave was faster. And so all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, thank you. Meeting is adjourned at 7:47. Have a good evening. And now I got to go get some dinner.
All right.
Yes. Bye,
Have a
everyone.
good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody that tuned in too.